Okay, let's be real for a sec. The holidays, they can be a bit of a stress fest, right? Like sometimes it feels like more marathon than merrymaking. So today we're diving deep into an article all about managing that stress. Not just for the holidays, though, for like the whole year-round kind of stress. And one thing that really caught my eyes is stress isn't always like the bad guy.
Yeah, that's true. Stress definitely gets, kind of a bad rap.
Yeah.
But it's actually like a totally normal, natural response to any challenge, really. Kind of like our internal alarm system, letting us know, hey, something's up.
Oh, so like that feeling you get right before you have to give a big presentation, it's like nerve-wracking for sure. But it also kind of helps you like focus, right?
Exactly. In small doses, stress can actually be, good for us. It's like a workout,
Oh.
but for our coping skills. But here's the thing, the catch, it's that like constant chronic stress. That's the real troublemaker. That's what starts causing problems. Think of it like this. If you were lifting weights like nonstop, no rest ever, eventually those muscles, they would just give out, right? Same thing with stress. It's that buildup of demands over time that leads to burnout and all those, all those negative consequences.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not about like erasing stress completely,
Yeah.
more about figuring out how to manage it effectively, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the, it's so simple, but it's one of the most powerful ways to do that is through the breath. And
Yeah.
just taking a few like conscious deep breaths can make a world of difference.
Wait, really? You mean just like stopping and taking a deep breath?
Sounds almost too easy, doesn't it? But what you're doing is you're consciously acknowledging the stress. You're hitting the pause button on that internal alarm system, giving your body a chance to like regulate.
Oh, I see. Like interrupting those stress hormones before they take over. The article also talks about how important routines are, especially when things are crazy busy, like during the holidays when your schedule's all over the place. I got to admit, that's something I really struggle with.
Yeah, it's so important to like maintain those healthy habits, especially when things are really hectic. We're talking, the basics, 8 hours of sleep, regular exercise, a balanced diet, all that stuff. They really like lay the foundation
Mm.
for being able to deal with stress.
Okay, I'm going to push back a little here.
Hmm.
8 hours of sleep during the holidays. I mean, between the family gatherings and the shopping and everything else, who has time for that?
Yeah, that's a really, really valid point. It's definitely, a challenge. And life, it doesn't always fit neatly into like those ideal recommendations. But here's the thing about sleep, especially when it comes to stress. When you're sleep deprived, your body, it actually produces more of that stress hormone, cortisol, which makes you more reactive, less able to cope with challenges. It even makes it harder to like think clearly, make good decisions when you're under pressure.
So it's like trying to run a marathon, but on an empty tank.
Hmm.
You might start off strong, but eventually you're gonna crash.
That is such a great analogy. You really do need to, fuel your body and mind properly to be able
Mm.
to handle all those stressful situations. And it's not just sleep either. Exercise, super beneficial. It helps to burn off those excess stress hormones and improve your mood, increase those like feel good endorphins.
So it's not just about fitting into that holiday outfit.
Exactly. It's about taking care of, your overall well-being. And don't underestimate the power of a balanced diet. What you eat, it can really like fuel your resilience, or it can totally fan the flames of stress.
That makes sense. But sometimes I feel like self-care, it just gets lost in the shuffle,
Mhm.
especially around the holidays. The article, it also talks about giving ourselves permission to take breaks, which honestly sounds pretty tempting right now.
It's so important to like recognize your limits and really prioritize your well-being. That means like setting boundaries, having the courage to say no to things that are just adding, unnecessary stress.
So like politely declining that extra cookie exchange or that fifth holiday party invite.
Exactly. It's not about being selfish. It's about being mindful of your own needs, and your capacity. And sometimes that means taking a break from social media too. All those like perfectly curated holiday photos and posts, they can create a lot of pressure and like unrealistic expectations.
Totally. Sometimes it feels like everyone else is having this like picture perfect holiday experience and you're the only one, struggling.
Yeah. And that's why disconnecting from like those online portrayals, it can be so freeing and lets you focus on like what truly matters and appreciate those like real connections you have in your life.
That reminds me of another point the article makes. Social connection, it can actually be an antidote to stress.
Yeah.
But isn't it natural to like withdraw when we're feeling overwhelmed?
It's a really common reaction, but isolation can actually make stress worse. reaching out to others, sharing our experiences, even the tough ones. It can really help us feel, less alone, more supported.
So instead of hiding under the covers with a plate of leftover cookies, we should be picking up the phone and calling a friend.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be like this long, drawn out conversation.
Yeah.
Even a quick check-in can make a huge difference. Think about like your support network. Who are the people that make you feel heard and understood? Those are the connections to nurture, especially during those like stressful times.
That's a good reminder. It is so easy to isolate ourselves when we're feeling stressed,
Hmm.
but connection is like so important. But we've been talking a lot about managing stress, in the moment.
Mm.
What about the bigger picture? The article also mentions using the holidays as a time for like reflection
Mm.
and goal setting.
Yeah, the holidays, they kind of naturally provide a pause in the year, a chance to step back
Mm.
and reflect on what you've accomplished and set intentions for the future.
Like hitting the reset button
Hmm.
and charting a new course for the new year.
Yeah, exactly. Think about what worked well for you this past year and what you'd like to change. Set some realistic goals that align with your values and priorities. If family time is like paramount, maybe you prioritize those shared experiences over material gifts.
That's such a good point, especially with all the financial pressure these days,
Mhm.
focusing on experiences instead of things that can be like a real stress reliever.
Absolutely. And here's a tip. Consider, incorporating those stress reducing activities into your goals. Maybe it's like committing to a regular meditation practice
Hmm.
or taking up a new hobby. That brings you joy.
I love that idea. It's like building stress management right into the fabric of your life. I'm really intrigued by this concept of mindfulness. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? How does that like work in practice?
Well, what's really fascinating about mindfulness is that it helps us become more aware of our thoughts and feelings without judgment. This lets us observe our experience with a sense of curiosity and acceptance rather than like getting caught up in that cycle of overthinking and negativity
Mm.
that often just fuels stress.
So instead of like immediately reacting to a stressful situation, we can take a step back, observe our thoughts and feelings, and then like choose a more skillful response.
Precisely. And the more we practice mindfulness, the more natural it becomes. It's like building a muscle of awareness that helps us navigate the ups and downs of life, holidays included. But we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. Before we move on to like specific techniques and strategies, let's pause here for a moment. Let these initial insights kind of sink in.
Welcome back to our deep dive into stress management. Before we paused, we were talking about mindfulness and how it can help us create, a little space between ourselves and our reactions to stress.
Yes, and I'm really curious to hear more about like specific techniques
Mhm.
that we can use in those moments when stress feels like it's just like taken over, when your heart's racing, your mind's spinning, and you just want to scream into a pillow.
Oh, we've all been there. And remember, the first step is simply acknowledging the stress, not trying to like push it away or pretend it's not happening.
Right, like that name it to tame it idea I've heard about. Exactly. And then we can start to introduce those like calming techniques. Deep breathing, that's a great place to start. It might seem too simple, but it really does work. When we're stressed, our breathing becomes shallow and rapid, which actually like perpetuates that fight or flight response. But when we consciously slow down our breath, we're signaling to our nervous system that it's okay to
So
relax.
it's like flipping the switch from panic mode to chill mode.
Exactly. And there are a few different ways to practice deep breathing. One technique is called box breathing. You inhale for a count of 4, hold your breath for 4, exhale for 4, and hold again for 4. It's simple, but it's a really powerful way to like regulate your breathing and calm your nervous system.
We'll have to try that one later. The article also mentioned something called progressive muscle relaxation. What's that all about?
So this technique is all about becoming aware of the tension that we often hold in our bodies without even realizing it. You systematically tense and then release different muscle groups, starting with your toes and working your way up to your head.
So it's kind of like giving yourself a mini massage from the inside out.
I like that description, and it's incredibly effective for releasing physical tension, which can then help to ease that mental and emotional stress as well.
These are all great techniques for dealing with stress in the moment. But the article also emphasizes the importance of like long-term strategies like building resilience. What exactly does that mean?
Well, think of resilience as your inner strength, the ability to bounce back from challenges and setbacks. It's like having a strong immune system, but for your mental health. And just like our physical immune system, resilience can be strengthened over time.
But how do we build up this mental immunity?
Well, there are a few, key ingredients. One is cultivating a positive outlook. Now, this doesn't mean ignoring negative emotions or pretending everything is always like rosy. It's more about choosing to focus on the good, even when things are tough. Looking for those silver linings, finding reasons to be grateful.
But how can we stay positive when things are, genuinely tough, especially during the holidays when expectations are so high and the pressure just feels really intense?
That's where the practice of gratitude comes in. Even when things feel challenging, there are always things to be grateful for. Maybe it's a warm home, a loving family, a good cup of coffee, or even just a moment of laughter with a friend. Taking time each day to appreciate these things, no matter how small, it can really help to shift our perspective and create a more, positive outlook.
So it's like training our minds to focus on the good stuff instead of like getting bogged down in the negative.
Exactly. And here's another powerful resilience building tool: strong social connections. We talked earlier about how important it is to reach out to others for support, but those relationships also play a crucial role in building long-term resilience.
It's like having a team of cheerleaders in your corner, rooting you on and reminding you of your strengths.
I love that analogy. Friends, family, mentors, colleagues, these are the people that offer encouragement, understanding, a listening ear when we need it most. They help us to see ourselves more clearly, remind us that we're not alone, and inspire us to keep going, even when things get tough.
So it's not just about venting or seeking advice. It's about cultivating those relationships that give us a sense of like belonging and support.
Precisely. And don't forget about self-care. This is a crucial part of building resilience and managing stress over the long haul. It's about prioritizing activities that nourish your mind, your body, your spirit.
So bubble baths, long walks in nature, indulging in a guilty pleasure novel, those things count.
Absolutely. Anything that brings you joy, helps you recharge. It could be spending time in nature, listening to music, practicing yoga, pursuing a creative hobby. The key is to find what works for you and make it a regular part of your routine.
It's like giving ourselves permission to refuel and recharge so we can, show up as our best selves,
Hmm.
even when life throws us curveballs.
Exactly. We've been talking about building resilience, and, the holidays themselves can be a real test of our resilience. There's just so much going on, expectations are high, and family dynamics can add, an extra layer of complexity.
Oh, tell me about it. The holidays can be wonderful, but they also have a way of bringing up like old patterns, pushing buttons.
It's true. But remember, we have the power to choose how we respond to those stressors. One tip the article suggests is to focus on shared values and traditions. Instead of getting bogged down in disagreements about, politics or lifestyle choices, maybe focus on those things that bring you together.
That makes a lot of sense. So instead of getting into a heated debate about current events, maybe reminisce about past holidays, share favorite recipes, or simply enjoy each other's company.
Exactly. Create a sense of togetherness and focus on those heartwarming traditions that make the holidays special. And when it comes to those relatives, that always seem to, push your buttons.
You mean like that aunt who always asks when you're getting married, or that uncle who insists on talking politics at the dinner table?
You know exactly who I'm talking about. The article suggests setting realistic expectations. Remember, you can't change people, but you can control how you react to them.
So deep breaths, visualization, and maybe a little strategic avoidance.
Exactly. And remember, it's okay to excuse yourself from a conversation that's getting heated or to take a break when you need some space. You're not obligated to, engage in every conversation or put up with behavior that's just draining your energy.
That's such a relief to hear. But, even with all these tips and techniques, the holidays can still feel just overwhelming. I'm curious to hear more about those stress-busting goals you mentioned earlier.
Right. As we discussed, the holidays can be a great time for reflection and setting intentions for the new year. It's like a fresh start, a chance to kind of hit the reset button and create a life that's, more aligned with your values and aspirations.
Like saying, okay, 2024, you were interesting, but 2025, I'm taking charge.
That's the spirit. But goal setting can feel, overwhelming, especially when we're already feeling stressed. So the key is to start small and focus on specific achievable actions.
So instead of vowing to like completely overhaul our lives, we should break down our goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
Precisely. And remember, your goals should be personally meaningful and aligned with your values. What really matters to you? What do you want to create more of in your life? Maybe it's spending more quality time with loved ones, prioritizing your health and well-being, or pursuing a long-neglected passion.
So if my goal is to spend more time with loved ones, maybe I start by like scheduling a weekly family dinner or planning a weekend getaway together.
Exactly. And if, reducing stress is a goal, maybe you commit to incorporating those relaxation techniques we discussed into your daily routine, even if it's just for like 5 or 10 minutes each day.
I'm sensing a theme here. It's all about those small, consistent actions that add up to big changes over time.
You got it. And remember, goal setting isn't about achieving perfection. It's about making progress and moving in the right direction. It's about creating a life that feels good and supports your well-being. But we're just scratching the surface here. There's a whole fascinating world of connection between our minds and bodies that plays a huge role in how we experience and manage stress.
I was just thinking about that. It's like our minds and bodies are constantly talking to each other, sending signals back and forth.
You're exactly right. And in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to explore that mind-body connection and discover how we can harness its power to create a more balanced and fulfilling life.
Welcome back. We've been talking about like all these practical ways to manage stress, but now we're getting into, I think, the really fascinating stuff, that connection between our minds and bodies.
Yeah, it's amazing how intertwined they really are. What we think and feel, it directly impacts our physical health and vice versa. It's like they're having this ongoing conversation, sending signals back and forth.
And I imagine when we're stressed, that conversation can get pretty intense.
Oh, absolutely. When we're under stress, our bodies, they release these hormones like cortisol. And, it's designed to help us deal with threats. But when it's constantly like pumping through our system, it can lead to all sorts of problems.
So is that why chronic stress is linked to things like, heart disease and high blood pressures, even a weakened immune system?
Exactly. It's like our bodies are in this constant state of alert, which really takes a toll over time. But here's the exciting part. We can actually learn to kind of modulate that mind-body conversation through practices like mindfulness, meditation, and yoga. They've become so popular, and for good reason.
I've dabbled in those, but I'd love to hear more about the science behind them. What makes them so effective for stress management?
Well, they all cultivate this sense of awareness and acceptance of what's happening in our bodies and minds without judgment. We learn to kind of observe our thoughts and feelings as they arise rather than getting like swept away by them.
So instead of getting caught up in that like whirlwind of what ifs and anxieties, we can just kind of notice them without getting hooked.
That's the idea. It's like creating a space
Yeah.
between ourselves and our reactions. And that allows us to, choose a more skillful response rather than just reacting impulsively.
So we're not suppressing those thoughts and feelings. We're just like changing our relationship to them.
Precisely. And it's not just about stress management either. Studies have shown that mindfulness and meditation can actually like improve sleep quality, boost our immune system, even enhance, cognitive function.
Wow. So it's like a multivitamin for our minds and bodies. You mentioned yoga as well. What role does that play?
Oh, yoga is fantastic because it combines like physical movement with mindfulness and deep breathing. It helps us release tension in the body while also calming the mind. Plus, there's like a strong social component to, a lot of yoga classes, which can further enhance those feelings of connection and support.
It sounds like there's so many ways to tap into this mind-body connection and use it to our advantage.
There really are. And it's not just about like formal practices either. Even simple things like spending time in nature, listening to music, or, engaging in creative activities. Those can have a profound impact on our well-being.
It's about finding those things that bring us joy, make us feel alive.
Exactly. It's about nurturing those aspects of ourselves that, bring us energy and vitality. When we feel good on the inside, it radiates outward.
This whole conversation has really shifted my perspective.
Yeah.
I used to think of stress as this enemy to be conquered, but now I see it as more of a messenger, a signal that something needs attention.
That's a wonderful way to think about it. And by tuning into those signals and taking care of ourselves on all levels, mind, body, and spirit, we can transform our relationship with stress and create a life that feels more balanced, more fulfilling.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. We've covered so much, from, understanding the science of stress to exploring practical techniques to cultivating a deeper awareness of that incredible mind-body connection. What are some key takeaways you hope our listeners, you know, walking away with?
Well, I hope they feel empowered, knowing that they have more control over their stress levels than they might have realized, and that it's not about